Welcome back to the Talking with Tiffynee show. I'm super excited today because I have a special guest, and this person I have known since they were really, really little. And our relationship has really bloomed, and honestly, like a dying flower to really a blossoming plant. This woman is so wonderful. Like, I just love everything about her. And so I'm introducing Tiara. She's a mom raising two young girls and navigating the waters of entrepreneurship within the social media industry. She has conquered party planning in the industry and now is focused on her budding cooking career and lifestyle brand. This lady is phenomenal. And when I say she does everything, and then when she does everything, it's like top tier, like there is no games. This lady is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome my guest, Tiara.
Hi, guys.
Hey, beautiful.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and actually just even being like a guest and then just saying like, hey, I'm going to do this.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much. And thank you for all of the kind words you said. I was like, oh, tears.
It's so true. I've watched you literally since you were a little kid, and watching you come out of your teenage years into your young adult years and then blossoming into a mom and a party planner was just amazing. And you also encouraged me. I remember one birthday you did some Minnie Mouse things for my daughter.
Oh yeah.
and you really just brought my idea to life. And so everything you do with excellence.
Thank you.
I love that about you. Like you're really mindful about the stuff that you put out, and because there's some people like, oh, I can make that in a scrap. I'm just to be honest.
I think about that all the time. I like try to make sure whatever I'm doing is on point, and I won't do it if it's not.
Yes, and I love that about you. And then just recently, in the last few years, I've watched you bloom into this amazing cook. And then you're like, now you're doing plants and stuff like that. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do?
I am a 100% vegan, and I just started an Instagram just sharing my food, just an accountability for me, just to like keep on track with my eating. And I really wanted to meet more people that were in the vegan lifestyle. And from there, I met a lot of people on Instagram that were growing plants. They were growing their own food too. And since my diet is 100% plant-based, I decided to try it too. Growing is something that runs in my family on both sides. I remember my great-grandma when I was growing up had this amazing garden. And I think about that all the time. And I wanted that for myself. So not only am I eating plants, but then I started growing them.
I love that. And it's funny because I talk about this in my book. Sis, is it you?
Sis, is it you?
I talk about this in my book because there was a time where it was 2020, and it was like you didn't have anything else to do because you were on lockdown, and so I bought a whole bunch of plants, and my husband was not very happy.
I remember that.
I bought a whole bunch of plants, and then somebody was like, "Oh, we should donate these plants to you," and I was like, "Oh yes, I would love it." And I had all these plants, and I was really big on my environment. I wanted my environment to change.
Yes.
and stuff. And so that was my biggest thing. But one of the things about when you don't know what your environment looks like, you have to learn how to take care of it. And all the plants are RIP.
All of them?
All of them. I did not get to
You have some cool plants too.
I sure did. And I spent a lot of money. A
Yeah.
lot of money.
It can get expensive.
It definitely can. And I just was like, but I was so intrigued about the peace that it brings me.
Yeah.
And so that really was like something that was like, but my first question for you today is that because this is something, because you are someone that takes care of yourself. And so self-watering is something basically making sure that you get the nutrients that you need. Right. And so a lot of us go into self, and I say this every episode, is that anytime you put the word self in front of another word, you limit the word in front of it. So when we talk about self-watering, a lot of us don't water ourselves well. And a lot of water, there's lots of benefits to water. But when I talk about what is the benefits of watering yourself, what is the benefit of it?
I think self-watering it comes in a lot of different ways. It's like it's drinking water, of course, you know. It's taking the time out to do things for yourself. But that could include, like, a lot of people think self-care is and stuff like that is all like, you know, baths and things like that. But and actually, when it gets down to it, for me, self-watering, I've gotten a lot into like reading self-help books. I think your book started it for me. After I went through that, I started reading a lot of different books about like stuff like that, like taking care of yourself. Those things like water me. Those things help me a lot. So I went from things like that to I actually got a therapist. Those are things that help water also. And even when nothing's wrong, I feel like having a therapist is a really good idea. Those things definitely pour into yourself. I spend a lot of my time with my kids. So I'm always, like they say, you can't pour from an empty cup. I have gotten into points of my life where I've been pouring into my kids nonstop, which you're supposed to do, but I forget about myself. So things like reading those books, going to therapy sessions, eating a plant-based diet are all things that pour into and water yourself. You're taking care of yourself. You're giving yourself the right nutrients. There's so many things, but I also do take my baths. I also do take my baths, and I also do light my candles.
That is good. And I like that. I think sometimes I talk about self-care, and that's an episode I'm going to be doing, but I didn't want to do it right away because I feel like people don't know what the word care means.
Yeah.
And so when we think about self-care, like you said, people think it's just baths, getting your nails done, making sure that you get your hair done and stuff like that. No, that's really, you're making sure you stay maintained and or whatever. But if this is not healthy, if this is not healthy, you know, it's like it defeats the purpose of what you're doing. And so, interestingly enough, you now have a plant garden. And so I have the funny story because I had bought all these plants and I felt like that you could water the plants. All you had to do was water the plants every day.
Yeah.
Right? It never dawned on me that every plant can't be watered every day.
Some plants can go days, weeks, depending on the season, months without water.
And I did not know that.
Like, well, you know, let's water it today.
And so, but then there was a point where I wasn't watering them because then when you start to see them get sick or something like that, you stop watering. And I feel like this also happens with our bodies, with our minds and ourselves, right? So what are some things that you have not watered in your life sometimes where you're just like, I know for a fact I neglected this plant area in my life?
I know that one of the biggest things for me is after I had the baby, the youngest, who's now 1 now, I wasn't really taking care of, I was still vegan. Actually, even my diet was not the best. You know, I was still vegan, but I was eating a lot of processed foods and stuff like that, but I wasn't working out for a little bit. So I wasn't taking care of that part of myself. But I feel like I water every part of my life now.
That's good.
It took me a minute, but after I had Gaia, my youngest, I think I did stop watering myself a lot. For sure. And I think you can fall into that as a new parent, having kids. Like you're pouring into all that all the time, and you could forget about yourself. It's really easy.
It's really easy. It's so easy.
Yeah, and it takes you can tell, like, it takes a toll on you for sure. So I'm pretty good at all of that, but I do notice there are times where I don't take care of certain things, and you can tell.
Have you noticed it and not to talk about anybody else, but like, have you noticed it in like friends' lives where you're like, God, you're not watering that, you know, that you're not doing that and stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about it. My friends and I we all talk about everything. We talk too much about everything, probably. We have no filters. If we have filters, we can't be friends. So we talk, my friends, my best friend, she will tell me straight up, girl, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I mean, I appreciate that too. Sometimes you
That's
need
so good.
people. Yeah.
Some people are not able to receive that.
Yeah.
And I feel like even when if we're just like using plants as our analogy, this
Mm-hmm.
talk, I feel like when my plants were getting sick, I had to download an app. And then I saw I wasn't the only person that was doing this. So there were people online utilizing their community.
Yeah.
And so it was
Yes.
like taking a picture of your plant and saying, hey, what's wrong with this? And people were like, oh, it's this or this or this. And you have the certain people, like, and now going back to self, like you have a lot of people that you have friends
Mm-hmm.
and they'll tell you something, yet you still won't water it.
If my friends, if you don't listen to them, they're gonna tell you you're not listening to me. My best friend is like straight up. She's like, girl, you need to do this. And if you don't do it, she's going to let you know you're not listening to me. And then she's like, I'm not going to help you anymore.
That part. That part. You're so right, because you get to a point where, like you said, if something's not being watered and it's sick and you're not going to listen, then okay, now I have to watch you die.
Yeah, basically.
And stuff. And that's not fun for me.
No, it's not. It's really not.
And so I feel like when we talk about plants, it's just plants are everywhere. And so when you're sitting outside and you're walking, the one thing I will say that I hated about living in Washington was Washington had fresh air, it had rain, it watered everything, but the community lacked to take care of what we were given. Right?
Yeah.
And here it's overly hot. I live in Texas and, and stuff, but people's yards are immaculate. Like they don't play that.
I've seen it. Yeah.
So it's like, what is the difference? But then I look at it at the same as how people are, where you can just see somebody's life and you're like, yo, you are not being watered, and stuff. So I asked you, like, because you take really good care of yourself, what is the importance of giving yourself, appropriating the amount of water that you give to things? So if we were talking about plants, you have to give plants a certain amount of water to make sure that they're good. But if we're talking about yourself, what do you know about yourself that you're like, I need to make sure that this has 15 minutes, this has an hour, this like because you said you work out and then you make a lot of your food. Like,
yeah.
So you make sure that you have time for that. Can you share the importance of that? Because even if you're not a vegan, right, you can cook yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and stuff like that. And you taught yourself, right?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that. We've known each other for a long time, but like you said, literally, when my parents moved to Virginia, they got stationed out there maybe about 8-9 years ago now. When they left here, I didn't know how to cook. I was always at my mom's house eating whatever my mom was making. And so when she left, she made me like make dinner for everybody for like, I think it was Christmas. She like literally was like, you're cooking dinner, I'm not doing it. And I was like, so like literally right then and there, I had to learn how to cook. And it kind of just, over time got better and better and better. And so now I'm in the kitchen a good part of my day. It is one of the I wouldn't say it's the downside of being vegan, but I guess if people don't have a whole lot of time, it would be the downside. But I'm in my kitchen nonstop. But the girls, they got to eat too, especially the baby now that she's being weaned off formula. I am cooking nonstop. It's after I pick up my daughter from school, I'm in the kitchen from about 3 o'clock to 6, prepping food, getting ready for the next day, and making dinner. So it is a lot of work, but to me, it's so worth it. Cooking is actually one way I show other people that I care about them and love them. Like I make food a lot of times, and I have to-go containers that I actually will have my friends stop by and pick up food, or I will take it to them. Like, so that's one of the things that makes me happy, though. Like cooking is a self-care thing for me.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. For me, since we got here, same. Definitely was not a cook, like at all. And even being a mom, I've been a mom for 15 years. And I was like, McDonald's and Burger King and stuff were like my best friends.
Yep.
And stuff until I literally stopped eating that. I think Brandon and I were talking about it was like 9 years ago. I stopped eating McDonald's and Jack in the Box and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really went on this, okay, I got to change. I have to change. I have congestive heart failure. So I can't be plugging my body with all this stuff. Now, can I give it meat? Absolutely not. But what I have learned, though, is that moving here, we cook so much more.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such an enjoyment to me to prep, and to know that my food is fresh.
And you're taking care of your family. Like, it's that, I mean, it's so, that makes me feel good. So I know.
That makes me feel good. And I was just going to say, I'm now like an avocado fiend.
Me too.
Oh God. And Brandon thinks it's so ridiculous. He's like, this is ridiculous. And I was like, oh, you want a piece of avocado toast?
Yep. It's avocado toast.
And I'm like, oh my God. But what I'm recognizing is that not only is it feeding me in a healthy manner, but it's feeding my children, and not feeding them in their stomachs, but like feeding their minds, because Jay, my oldest, loves to cook now.
Like, that's good.
Oh God, she's a chef, girl.
Yes.
Like, this girl whips up stuff, and I'm just like, wow, like this is amazing, but it's also something that I feel like I'm watering her.
Yeah.
And had I not started cooking and stuff like that, I could see where she was just like, hey, we got to eat, but then her seeing a passion in that. And so I think sometimes we don't even recognize that as we're doing stuff ourselves, like how you said you work out and how you make sure that now you're going to a therapist and stuff like that. Like your oldest can see that.
She does. She sees all of that. She actually has talked to me. I do therapy through an app, the apps, and so we do like Cam, and she's walked in the middle of a session. The kids have both said hello to Miss Angela. And she knows, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with, I think there's a stigma around it. I don't want her to grow up with a lot of the things that, we have experienced growing up. I don't want her growing up thinking there's anything wrong with seeing a therapist. Like, there's nothing wrong with having someone to talk to about, things that are going on in your life. In the cooking thing, like you said, she loves cooking. That's she's actually made YouTube videos making vegan food. She wants to continue doing that. Those are good skills that I want her to have.
I love that. And it's funny that you say that they've walked in on you through therapy. My kids get to see me give people therapy all the time. And so, but then we also have real conversations. So my kids can come to me and tell me really how they feel about stuff, especially when I piss them off. That's where Sis is and you came, because they're like, it's you, sis. It's you. And I was like,
I can see them too.
Yes, absolutely. Matter of fact, when I had all the plants, we would go to the store, and Jordan, she's now 10, was like, don't you buy another plant. You don't know how to take care of them. I was like,
she will tell you.
She will tell me in a hot second, because she's like, if you don't recognize it, then maybe my voice will help you re-recognize that there's 3 plants dead at home that you will not remove from the house that we have to walk by every day.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where I feel like you're transferring that to your children.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't notice that, like even in relationships and stuff like that, even your relationship with your mom, because you have a really great relationship with your mother. And I think that shows that your kids can have a great relationship with you, because there's an importance. You're really close with your brothers. You were telling me your brother did something this week for you, and you were like, oh yeah. And there's so many people that don't really know that that's a part of watering.
I actually just hired my brother on. He's doing marketing and PR stuff in New York. So I actually just hired him as my PR person for the summer. So
wow,
we will see what he. That. Yeah, we will see how he does.
I freaking love that, and I think that you even doing that also breaks generational curses.
Yes.
One thing that I have loved about watching you is breaking generational curses, because I watched your mom and my aunt. That's how we know each other. Their best friends grow up, and I watched the things that they did and stuff, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
party. And
Oh
stuff
yeah.
like, yes. And but then wanting to emulate that and wanting to be a part of that and stuff like that, and then us say, okay, and then I watch your mom get into a beautiful marriage and leave this country and
Yep.
not want to come back because
And
she's like,
live her life. Like when I was so happy. Everybody, it was sad when she left, but I loved that she got to experience that. I mean, we born and raised here in Washington. Didn't really we were here. And she was a single mom for a long time, and she got married to my stepdad is amazing. And she stayed here a lot while he was on, he would be stationed places. But finally, she was like, I'm doing this. And she did it for herself, and that's something that I saw. My mom did things for herself finally. And I love that for her. I'm happy to have her home. But I completely understand if she was like, I'm leaving again.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I love that just for you guys too, because I think, and I hope you and your mom do some things, because your mom is hilarious. That her mother is so funny. Like, she should definitely be a comedian. I don't know.
She's awesome.
A comedian. She is so funny. But just even showing that, because being able to say, because I know like people would say like, oh, what are you going to do? And look at you. You're this fabulous mom. And so to come from that and to be that is just amazing. And then to see you guys' relationship is it's inspiring, because I know
my best friend. She really is. Things haven't always been like that, but I'm so grateful for like how everything just came together. She was a young mom, so yes. I saw everything. I saw the struggle, everything, but I learned from that, and she has taught me so much, and she still is teaching me so much. I mean, yesterday I was about to have a meltdown, and I called her, and she got it together.
She definitely will do that.
She will get it together for you.
I love that about that. When you look at yourself now and you say, okay, is there a such thing as overwatering, right? Would you say that there is, and especially because I know that it is in plants, right? I know that you can overwater a plant, but what does overwatering you in self look like?
Man, I don't know the answer to that one. Let me think. Overwatering self.
My example would be a lot of us connect to friendships.
Okay.
And so
in relationships.
I remember there was a point in my life where I was seeking my friends instead of God.
Yeah.
And so it was like, instead of praying or something, I'm like, girl, girl, and I feel like maybe people don't even look at it that way, where it's just like, oh, I'm telling my friends all this stuff, but it's an overwatering to me when you look at it and you're like, this person can't do anything for me, but guide me to like back to where I really need to be. And I didn't have friends that were doing that. I didn't have friends that were like, girl, you need to go to God with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't help you with that. That's between you and Jesus and stuff. Or just even like when, like, there's people that get their hair done every week, and it's like, okay, I get my hair done every week, but I don't take care of other areas because of that. Have you ever experienced that?
I don't think I have a whole lot of experience with that. As we talked about it earlier, I'm a very disciplined person.
Yes, you are.
I'm a very disciplined person, so I pay attention to where my time and attention and things are all the time. But I have seen, examples of, like you just said, of things like that for sure. Me in particular, I don't know when I'm not perfect. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be, but like I don't know if I'm.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I'm like, you
gave a small example. You said maybe sometimes with your kids, because then you don't pay attention to yourself.
That's what I was getting ready to say. I think that is something I definitely have to watch out for often. Especially, I think that happens to me often. Like even in the past week, Mother's Day was not a Mother's Day for me. I was nonstop. I want to do this, mommy, I want that. And it became like, where's the me time? There was no quiet me time, even going to take a shower, have knocking on the door. So that is something I do have to watch out for. I spend a lot of time pouring into my kids, and I love them, of course, but you can get stuck because I need to take care of myself. And like people always say, you can't pour from an empty cup. So I have to make sure I'm taking care of myself so I can take care of them. Because if I'm not taking care of myself, then I'm just like on an E. The tank is on E. I can't do anything for anyone if I'm not making sure I'm taking care of first.
You're absolutely right.
Yep. And sometimes Aaliyah, the oldest, she'd be like, I need this and that. And I'm like, well, I need to take a shower. So you're going to have to wait.
No, that is so funny. Actually, I'm going to read this out of my book because I actually heard a quote. So basically in my book, I have this section called, it's lack of boundaries. Mm-hmm. And it says it's excessive human demand of ourselves. Mm-hmm. I said, buying 20 plants was already excessive, but my capacity to care for the plants was limited. Not to be funny, but managing a husband, 2 hormonal daughters, 3 dogs, and 2 baby companies, my capacity was full. Mm-hmm. If we offer up ourselves to people, events, activities, situations, and so on, with no limitation or boundaries for what we give out, we are setting ourselves up to damage our soil. For example, overwatering or just putting a lot of unnecessary trinkets in your soil just to make it look busy. I once heard a quote from Ayanna Vazant that said, what is in your cup is for you, but what comes out of your cup is for others. Your cup can't run it over if you're allowing people to drink inside the cup as well. If your cup isn't filling up back up at the rate people are drinking from it, you're giving from an empty cup. You are essentially being disconnected from your gardener.
That's deep. And all of that is very true. It's yes.
I watched her, she gave that small quote, but then I went on with it. But she also said there's a book called The Course of Miracles. And it said, when you're giving from an empty cup, you're allowing people to rob you and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And I have done that.
Yeah. And now that you say, I definitely have done that. I try to be very supportive to people a lot of times. And so that's, I guess, like we were just talking about, like that is one area where I give myself out a lot. And this year in particular, I took that back. I cannot anymore until I have myself. I'm not all the way together all the time, so this year in particular, I was like, I'm turning 35. I'm taking care of myself. I cannot help or support anyone else until I can take care of myself.
Yes, that was me.
Yep.
That was definitely me. And it was a hard lesson for me to learn that I lacked boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because I was like, boundaries, I'm boundary, and stuff. But I write in my book about allowing my own friends to cross boundaries because it was just something that they did, and it was just something that we did. And so, including me, and because we were so uncomfortable with stating our boundaries because you have this concept in your mind that you should know. Mm-hmm. And it's just like the plants. Oh, you should know how to take care of a plant. No, you shouldn't, because every plant is different.
You got to do a lot of research. I'm still simple things like how to grow a tomato. I know how to grow tomatoes, but I am still reading and like watering. That's another thing I have for, when it comes to plant gardening. I am still reading about all these plants, still watching YouTube videos about all these plants, things that I've been growing for, at least 3-4 years now. I'm still learning. It's still watering and still trying to learn about these things.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we go out of it and we forget that once we learn the knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. We think that we know it all. And so then we even with our friends, even mm-hmm. with our children and stuff like that. And then we get to a point where we stop educating ourselves. And so then you get to a point where my oldest is like, I don't even like that anymore. So stop calling me that. Oh, you know what I'm saying? And stuff like that. And so it's like, you don't know. And then what happens when someone says that to you, you become offended.
Yeah.
And you literally find residency in that offense. So you create a home instead of trying to be like, neither one of us live here. Like, we're not doing that, And And I think that's even within ourselves. When someone tells us about ourselves and it's like, well, how did you know that about me? And I didn't know that. Well, clearly you found residency in that comfortability.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be like that. And so you might not have seen it as an issue. You might not have seen it as a problem. You were saying that when you first, after you had Gia, this is her second child, everyone. She said she stopped working out for a second and stuff. What made you like,
I couldn't walk very far. Every day to go pick up my daughter from school, I park at my best friend's house and we walk to go get the kids because her son goes, they all go to the same school. Oh. Yeah. And so we were walking up there and I'm out of breath, pushing a stroller, out of breath. And I was like, no, this isn't good. You know, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go for walks. And I'm usually a very physically fit person. And I was like, even like when I say I'm working out now, I'm not even going to the gym. I got an Oculus for my birthday, and I have been using that, doing the workouts on that. Like even something as small as that, I'm not trying to, I used to be like super like in shape, like concerned about having a six pack. I'm not even concerned about having a six pack. I just want to be healthy so I can live a healthy life and take care of my kids. Like I don't want to be going for walks with the girls and being all like, oh my God, I can't breathe. So, you know, that when I say I'm working out, I'm doing like that kind of stuff because I'm not trying to be ripped, like, you know, like I was in my 20s. I'm just trying to be healthy right now.
Right. I think that's so important. Even with you planting your garden, and I've been watching you grow. I love your Instagram and your.
I wish I could show them to you, but they're in the garage.
I literally love everything that you do, and I saw you start from when you just started. I think growing it on the back of the fence and stuff, and you started just growing stuff. Yep. And watching you just do that and find yourself in that has been so inspiring because it's like you're taking the time out to make sure that you're like, hey, I have great vegetables. Because you said you're all plant-based. Mm-hmm. What are some tips that we can use to manage and maintain our self-watering?
Some tips for managing self-watering. I think, like you said, a lot of people will do all the things and get to a good place. I'm guilty of this also. And then they stop doing those things that keep them going. So I would say for sure, like, don't stop. Like I notice I'll be reading these books, you know, like, oh, everything is going great. Well, stop reading the books. But I need to read the books. It doesn't matter. You need to reread the books if you've already read them. But you need to keep, like, I will put the audio books on and have that on all day. Just having that stuff in my ear nonstop, I think helps me out a lot. Like, I don't know what kind of person that is, but I am someone who will listen to the same audiobook, read the same books, watch the same shows 5-10 times. I think that something I've noticed about myself is that when I stop doing those things is when I fall back into like old patterns. When I stop taking care of myself, I've lost 5 pounds. I'm good because I did that recently. Oh, I lost the 5 pounds. I can go back to just eating all the processed junk I want to. No, because you gain back 10 after that. Yeah. Especially in your 30s. Like, it's not easy to keep that weight off. So I think consistency for sure. And I'm big on writing everything down and taking notes and all that. Like I have notebooks everywhere. I have one of those planners that it breaks it up into the days and it has like, you know, the inspirational, motivational quotes and all that. That's helped me out a lot too. But I definitely think consistency and creating routines for yourself. Like my plants, I had an issue over Easter weekend where my dad was working on my floors that whole week. So the days were a little off already. And then Easter came and I was doing Easter activities with the girls. Well, I didn't go in my garage and I checked the plants, but I didn't water them. I wasn't in there pruning and clipping things back. Well, Monday came around and I go out there and I lost about 11 plants in there. So I mean, that's an example right there. You can't just take a break or stop, though. You have to continue to do the work on yourself for sure. Because otherwise you're going to lose things. I lost 11 plants that weekend, and I was very sad because I grew everything from seed. That's like losing, important things. I wanted to cry.
I bet.
Yeah. So,
oh
I mean,
my God.
You got to be consistent with, just like you got to be consistent with gardening. Gardening is a lot. I mean, it's 30 minutes a day, really, or more if you have the time, of checking to make sure everything's watered, especially in a grow tent, because it's a little bit of soil in a container. And so you got to make sure that soil is watered. You got to make sure you're hitting it with the right nutrients. Clipping, anything that's looking like it needs to be clipped. If you're not clipping that, if it's touching other plants, it's infecting. It could possibly infect or something with those plants. So you got to stay consistent for sure. I think that is the biggest thing.
I love that. You literally just tied into the tips that I have to manage your soil. And one of them is become aware of your soil. This is going to take some self-revelation. Sometimes the enemy is inner me. It's you.
Yes. Is it you?
Yes. You have to take accountability for your faulty soil. Your soil is being managed by you and only you. This can be no one else's fault but your own. Only you can change you plus God. Then I said, transplant yourself to some better soil. Sometimes it requires you to relocate, not necessarily physically, but spiritually. Your heart might need to be moved to a healthier pot of soil. And then I'm like, add some organic compost. Organic is relating to derived matter or from living matter. This for me was the word of God, the manual for my life. For you, it might be something different, but for you will need to had something organic to add nutrients back into your soil. I said, here's a few things to know about the functionality and benefits of soil. Most plants get their nutrients from their soil. It is the main source of survival. Most living things depend on their soil for their existence, and soil helps anchor you to your roots. One of the things you were saying was that you had to make sure that it got pruned. I talk about this because I remember Auntie Isi coming to my house one day. I had planted all these flowers and some of them were dying. And there was a tree above it. And she's like, you need to cut this branch off. And I was like, why? You're just a tree. She's like, but your plants are not getting any sunlight. And I think sometimes we think as pruning as damaging, but it really is allowing more fruit to grow.
You need it. You absolutely need it. Or like even house plants, vegetable plants, whatever, because if you're not cutting off the dying pieces, I mean, this is one of the things that relates to life so much for me. If you don't cut off those dying pieces to correct it, all your energy, the energy from those plants is being spread out to all the other limbs, but it's also going to this dying piece.
Yes.
So you have to let it go. And that can relate to so many things in my life. You gotta let certain things go in order for you to continue to grow.
Oh, that is so good. You gave me chills because it was so good. Some people don't even recognize that. Like you said, you are paying attention to the dying thing and you're giving it attention and stuff like that. And so many like relationships die, habits and things that you're like comfortable. Like you said, like you were walking and you couldn't breathe. Like that needs to die. Like I can walk, but I can't breathe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so for me, it's just like even being healthy, like making sure I went from taking 17 pills to now 5. That was a big transition, but I hated it. I hated taking pills, period. But it's like, you have to understand that you have to prune yourself. And I had to prune things out of my life that people that wouldn't encourage, people that wouldn't like, even family, and stuff like that, because it's like, it doesn't mean that it's not going to grow back.
Yes, that's important too to realize.
It just means that it's just not necessary right now. And then you said another important thing where you said, when something is infected and it's touching something else.
Yes.
Bad fruit can corrupt good fruit. And so people don't recognize that if you put a bad rotten orange next to a good orange, it's not going to turn the good orange good. It's going to make that orange rotten.
Yep, it can, and it spreads. It spreads really fast. Also, things like that.
Oh, that is so good. You're
Yep.
so right. One last thing I want to touch on is, because it's a tip that you probably don't give yourself much credit, because I was telling you earlier, is your discipline. What helps you stay disciplined in all the things that you do, because you're really disciplined?
I'm very, people always tell me I'm weird about certain things. Like, in order for, like, for example, so that I don't eat certain things, my daughter hates this, but I won't buy certain things. But we don't have those certain things. If she wants those certain things, you need to go ask your dad to buy those things, or you can go buy those things with your money. But I don't bring those certain things into the house because I know I will eat them. Like, for example, and I told him when I turned 35, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I will eat a whole bag of chips in one sitting, the family size chips. And so I knew this year, I can't do stuff like that anymore. It's not good for your health. No matter how healthy you are, eating a bag of chips in one sitting is not a good thing. And I'm guilty of doing that all the time. So I will not bring certain things into the house. I have like separate bank accounts. So I will only, like, for like spending and stuff. So I won't, if it's not in this account, I'm not going to buy it. I set myself up in ways like that. I won't do certain things. Like, I set myself up in certain ways so that I'm not even tempted to do certain things. It's almost like, when people say they hide like candy and stuff from themselves. Yeah. I do that all the time. I hide things from myself all the time because I know that if it's right in front of my face, I'm going to indulge or do what I'm not supposed to do. So I'm very good at keeping myself away from things by doing stuff like that. I know it's weird to some people that I do stuff like that, but I'm like, it helps me.
I don't think that's weird at all, because I think what you said in this is that you are aware of yourself.
Yes, very aware, yeah.
And sometimes people are not aware of themselves, that you're like, hey, I have a weakness. And I think that's the one thing people don't recognize. You can be fully aware of yourself, but if you're not aware of your strengths and your weaknesses, and you don't give them full credit, some of us don't give ourselves full credit for the shit that we're not strong in.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, oh, I'll get through it or whatever. But you're like, I'm not strong in having a bag of chips in this house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not strong. So
we won't have them.
Yep.
I remember I bought her a case. You can buy the cases of the little bags of chips. And she woke up the next day and saw in the trash, Mommy, you ate my chips. I'm like, I'm not buying those anymore.
Yeah.
Ask your teacher if you could keep those at school.
Oh my God. You're so right. I didn't even realize that. I do things like that too. And I didn't even realize that was something, I wasn't even giving myself credit. I got myself sick yesterday. I don't keep candy anymore. Me and my husband went on a 40-day fast in the beginning of the year from sweets.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the hardest thing, because I didn't realize I was eating candy in the morning. I was substituting it for stuff, because I was just like, and then I end up eating more fruits and stuff during that fast. I was like, okay, my life has to change. This doesn't make any sense that I now eat way more fruits just because I've eliminated candy. So now I don't really like it like that. But then, so one of the things was keeping candy by the bed. And so the other night, my husband, there was some candy on the desk in our room, and he was like, oh, here, this is yours. I was like, no, that needs to go in the pantry. And he's like, just put it over there for tonight. I said, man, don't do that. And he did it in the middle of the night. Here my ass go, eating candy. And I had a taco by my bed, because I love to snack in the middle of the night. So I'm eating. I wake up with the worst stomach ache. And I had an event to do yesterday. And I was so sick. And I was telling my husband, I was like, see, that's why I don't keep candy by the bed. I'm not strong in that area. And so that's why it goes in the pantry, because my ass will not get up and go to that pantry, especially in the middle of the night. And then with AC on, it's freezing in here.
Yeah.
So it's like, but knowing yourself and being self-aware of yourself is so important.
Like, I'll tell you one thing. I haven't had beef in 12 years now. So before I went vegan, I gave up beef. But the reason why I gave up beef was because I was eating burgers every single day. I was driving myself to Sonic's. I lived over by a Sonic's. I remember I was driving myself to Sonic's in the middle of the night to get a damn cheeseburger. And so I wasn't giving up meat for any other reason at first, but because I couldn't stop eating burgers, I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to eat beef anymore. So I gave up beef, and then going vegan, it was, it was more of a health thing when I finally went full vegan. But, I do certain things like that, and people think I'm just crazy because I'm just like, I'm giving up, beef because I can't stop eating burgers. But that's how I discipline myself. That's how I teach myself not to do certain things and how to stay on track.
That is so good. And that's one of the reasons why I gave up McDonald's and Wendy's and stuff like that. I was going to Wendy's, pulling out of the drive-thru, parking, just to make sure I wasn't still hungry after I finished my food.
I feel you though. I love food so much that I feel you on that. Like, another thing I do for discipline is I won't buy like cookies or anything at the store or cakes or anything. If I want those things, I have to make them from scratch. And like you said, don't nobody want to do all that. So it's like, do you really want those cookies? Do you really want a cupcake right now? If you do, then go in the kitchen and go ahead and make one. And I'm like, we'll skip on it today. So, I mean, like, those are things I do to discipline myself. They don't work for everybody, but like, they work for me. I've been able to stay focused sometimes, not all the time, but like a lot of times,
That I get it. It's the same for me. I was always on my phone, and now like making sure my phone is on my nightstand at night, not under my pillow. Or I can plug it up across the room and not worry about it. Now keep my phone on silent all the time because I was answering every call. And
those things can drive you crazy. I don't have any notifications on. So if you've ever texted me and you don't hear from me for a while, that is why. Like, that is a part of my self-care. I don't have any notifications. And my friends know that if you have an emergency, you need to call me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think that's great because I'm learning that also because I've always been available. And so that's one thing about me that I was really overwatering.
Yes.
Being available to everybody and everything.
Yes.
And I do that because then you don't get the best out of me. And stuff. And so you then it's like you get half-assed Tiff, and you don't want half-assed Tiff because you, in your mind, you might think, oh, half-assed Tiff is great. But in my mind, I'm like, no,
I
because
can do better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I really appreciate having you on here.
I had fun. Thank you.
Thank you. My last question for you is have you asked yourself lately, sis, is it you?
Yes. When I was reading that book, I'll tell you, that book started a lot of things for me. So when I was reading that book, I actually finished that, and then I went and read The 5 Love Languages. And I realized my sis is it you moment is like a lot of my relationships, friends, anything, a lot of those relationships, I feel like, it's that person's fault. So, the book, The Sis Is It You, I had a moment where I was like, okay, wait a minute. What have I done to contribute to these unfortunate events in my relationships, with people? And so that was my biggest sis is it you moment. And it actually did help me a lot, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. Because one of the things that's been hard about being a self-published author is knowing, because I sold 250 books.
Yes.
Leaving Washington. And I then went into imposter syndrome because I felt like, well, did this book help, or did people just buy it because they like, oh, I fuck with Tiff or whatever, and stuff like that. So that was hard for me, but then also not knowing what was next. And just hearing you say that, because I knew that it was me. I was like, and I think I'm so kind and so nice and stuff like that.
Yep.
But even having a conversation with you about things that I have done, like when we were children and stuff like that, and being like, I am sorry. Like,
that is so funny.
And stuff, but even recognizing that, and just wanting to be a better person, and always thinking, okay, well, how did I contribute to this? And if I can fix it, then let me fix it, because I am open to doing
it, definitely.
And that's what type of person I am. I'm like, I'm so happy that I was able to, like, and it was so, And if people heard it, they would be like, "Oh, that was when you guys were young." Yeah, but it affected someone, and so I'm glad that I was able to receive that, and then also for you giving me an opportunity to show you like my genuineness and showing who I really am and stuff like that. And so I appreciate that out of you, and I want to thank you for that because
Oh,
you are someone that I look up to. And even though you're younger than me, you've done a lot of amazing things that
oh, thank you.
allow me to show like, okay, I can do this, like, and so I really am just very thankful for you being on the show and giving me the opportunity to interview you and platform your business.
Thank you so much.
Can you let everybody know how to find you and how to follow you, because you make some great stuff. I'm gonna taste some vegan things because of you.
Even if you are not vegan, I feel like the food I make, because it's so seasoned, it is seasoned very well. Like, you could still really enjoy it. I cook a lot of food for my non-vegan friends and give it to them all the time, and they try my recipes and for their families too, and they love it. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is hungryafvegan. Actually, it's the same on TikTok. Where else am I? I am on Twitter also with the same name. I don't really use the Twitter, but Instagram is where I'm at for sure. Yeah, I think that, yeah. And I do have a blog. It is thegreendiaryxo.com, where I have some of my recipes, but I'm going to be doing like an update pretty soon and changing a lot of things. This next in June, I'll be at the Black Business Market on June 19th with my plants and also a little preview of the cookbook.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
I am so excited. I can't wait for it to come out. I definitely want to get one. And everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for Self Sundays, Self-Watering. And check us out next Sunday. We will be having a special guest, a recording artist. So come check us out. And ladies and gentlemen, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.